Direct from Foxborough, Massachusetts, the gem of Norfolk County, and taped at the studios of Foxborough Cable Access. It's Foxborough Central. And here's your host, Bob Hickey.
Hello and welcome to another fine episode of Foxborough Central. My name is Bob Hickey. I am your host, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join with me and my guests as we talk about the people, events, and organizations that make Foxborough truly the gem of Norfolk County. Now, for those of you who are fans of the program, you know that I am the executive director of the Marilyn Rodman Performing Arts Center, the Orpheum Theater here in Foxborough. I have had the opportunity to meet wonderful, wonderful people, performers, directors, people who are passionate about their craft, dancing. And I've had an opportunity to meet a couple of really wonderful people who have brought their product, if you will, their message to our stage. So I'm going to read this first, and then we will jump into a program. A year ago, on August 26th, the musical We Did It For You, A Woman's Journey Through History, began performances in Massachusetts at First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church in Medfield. Playwright Thea Eberall said, on August 26, 1920, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was adopted, and so that date became Women's Equality Day. We knew last year that was the date to begin our performances on, and the Espresso Yourself Coffee House at First Parish gave them that opportunity. Since the Massachusetts premiere last year, We Did It For You has been performed an additional 11 times in various towns in the Metro West area. Now, we have to make that 12 because starting January 1st of 2019, We Did It For You has been making their home at the Marilyn Rodman Performing Arts Center, and they just had their first performance, which was truly inspirational, well-produced, well-directed, well-acted. I had a great time there. If you were there, phenomenal. If you weren't there, you'll have to come back again. And so it was with great fanfare and applause. I introduced to you Thea Eberall and Shirley Riga with We Did It For You. Thea, thank you so much for being here. Shirley, thank you so much for being here. I hope you both are having as much fun in Foxborough as you, and found it as productive in Foxborough as you have in your other place in Massachusetts. And, you know, part of this is, you know, as the manager of the theater, I feel like we've talked, and we had a good coming of the messaging minds to make sure that we're all in simpatico and going in the same direction. But at the same time, there's so much more to learn, there's so much more to know. So I'm glad you're joining me today because I cannot wait to have this nice conversation. So Thea, first of all, thank you for being here. And you are a poet and a playwright and so many other things. But how did we come up with We Did It For You? What was the motivation? In the 1920
I wasn't around in
I was going to say none of us were. So how did this become a focal point?
My mother was 7 years old in 1920, so she remembered it. And,
okay.
But in 2010, I was living in California, and the Women's Journey Conference was looking for a play, a short 20-minute play about how women got their rights in America. And I love history, and I'm a playwright, so I raised my hand and I wrote it, and everybody loved it, and we put on the 20-minute version at the conference. Got standing ovations, and I ended it at the 60s. I figured everybody knew what happened after that, so we didn't.
Not so much sometimes.
Except there's a lot of people around that weren't even alive in 2010 and are seeing the play now. So.
Well, I think the great part about the subject, and the subject matter is about women's suffrage, women's getting
lots of rights.
I was going to say we're not up to equal rights yet, but getting, you know, going in that direction. Yeah. But having been afforded the opportunity to see the musical just a few weeks back, not only was it eye-opening that I learned something, but I love the way that you updated it to have the current characters, and I use characters because it's a musical, but they're real-life people, and putting the struggle in today's terms and still addressing it towards today's audience. So that was pretty brilliant.
That was one of my prerequisites to figure out who to be in the play. I wanted the characters to have a connection to current times. So, you know, Anne Hutchinson, even though she's from the 1600s, she was just recently exonerated, so in very recent times. So it
was a little late for her, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, she was.
400 years too late, but the thought is there. The thought is there. So so many different paths we can go down. I guess we'll talk about We Did It For You, for example. We are going to be performing that at the Marilyn Robbins Center every other month we're now your home residence.
Yep.
Is that true?
Absolutely.
And you're committed to that?
Absolutely, we are.
You're loving the Pink Theater?
Loving it.
All right. Well, we're loving having you there.
The whole setup is wonderful.
Beautiful. So
we had quite a reception, for our first time there. We had like 150 people.
We did.
We loved it. We want to get, larger and larger audiences. That was one of our reasons for choosing the Marilyn Rodman Theater, was that it was large. It was larger than some of the places that we have been performing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're very excited and, want the challenge to fill it. And I'm sure that we will every
Great.
time.
Well, let's start that process now. You can reach out to the We Did It For You. Do we call it the We Did It For You Players? What's the official name?
What a good question.
I don't know that we've ever been asked that question. Cast members.
Well, I love the We Did It For You Players, because what they really are doing is spreading a message of empowerment and education, as well as laying the groundwork for future generations of suffragettes, if you will, who want to take up the mantle and work forward to improve the lot of
Absolutely.
50% of our population.
When you look at the acronym of our name, We Did It For You, it spells out WDIFY, and that we say is We Defy.
Ah.
Isn't that interesting? So the We Defy players.
Well, we're going to We Defy it by going to www.wediditforyou.org. You are a nonprofit organization?
Not yet. We are working towards that.
Excellent, but we're in that frame of mind. And that's the important thing.
Absolutely.
We are. Our goal is to empower women and girls to participate in democracy, and so that they know that women have contributed to our culture, to our society. And that's why, during the play, I don't know if you remember, we had scrolling information about all the women that have done things. These things get left out of the history books, and I did a lot of research to find, things that women have done as first time they've done it or they contributed.
Having seen the musical, it is an educational exercise.
Absolutely.
But it's not a history lesson, but it's a history musical. And I enjoyed the performance and enjoyed learning something, not the other way around. I think that's a key to the success of the musical, is that you're not trying to beat somebody over the head with a history lesson.
No.
You're trying to entertain, and you learn something. And I go back to you remember the Schoolhouse Rock, Conjunction,
Absolutely.
Junction?
Yep.
I was doing an email this morning, and I was helping somebody with a resume, and I said, use fewer conjunctions, and just thinking back to the conjunction. And I think back to this, and I remember the names that you're mentioning. Anne Hutchinson, for example, I honestly didn't know. I remember something about her, but now I know the story, and I remembered it from watching the musical.
Right.
And so what a great way to educate and entertain at the same time. So congratulations, if that was the intent, you succeeded.
Yep.
Yeah, another criteria I had for writing it was to have actual stories about people. It wasn't enough just to, supply some facts or data, but it was to actually bring their stories alive. So, when we talk about Anne Hutchinson, she was pregnant with her 16th child while she was put on trial and made to stand for days, and it was a terrible thing that she had to experience. And so it's like the way I wrote it. It was like looking at history with a microscope. Mm-hmm. And when we performed at Fort Irwin Training Center for the Army in California, we had 400 soldiers watching it, and they gave us a standing ovation. And they said it was like watching a PowerPoint presentation on steroids.
Isn't that something?
And that's what it is.
That must have been an awesome feeling, too.
It was.
Knowing that you were well received that way by people who may not have been your target audience.
They all wanted to shake our hands, and we lined up. It was like a wedding reception. They wanted to shake the hands of every single actor. Well,
and to remind everybody, I'm here with Thea Everall. She is the playwright of We Did It For You, and Shirley Riga, who is the producer and an actor. Mm-hmm. And you two are really the leaders of our relationship as we have this. And so one play ends, the next play begins. Do we start off with a whole new cast? Do you have people who love it and come back?
What's the dynamic? You mean for the actors?
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we pretty much poll all the actors to see who's available, and then we take a look at it and make the decisions of who's available and who can do what part again.
Okay.
So we try to do a lot of repeat of what people have done, so that because they're comfortable in it. We do have a character, Melanie, who's a teenager, and so we have 3 teenagers who are able to do that.
Okay.
And we have a pool of women who are more than the number in the cast, but in the play. But people have lives, so we're really pulling from.
And it is a professionally done performance.
Right.
They are volunteers. We understand that. It's community theater, but the level of execution, I guess we'll say, is pretty impressive. And so there are rehearsals every week.
Every week. Yep.
So there is a bit of a commitment. But if people are interested, they can reach out and learn more and perhaps become involved.
Oh, we love more.
We're always looking to enlarge our pool, always. And so we ask people to just get in touch with us through the website.
And that would be wediditforyou.org. If you are having a pencil moment, you don't have one handy, you can always check it out again at orpheum.org, the website for the theater. We have a link directly to them, and we love having more people get involved with the performing arts. I think that's what we as a theater are positioning ourselves as a community resource and a way for folks to get involved. So
we love women and the girls getting involved in it. It's one aspect of our mission is really to empower women to not just learn about women's rights, but to really participate. And we feel like this is one way. I mean, this play in Massachusetts really started after the Women's March. Women were wanting to do something.
Really?
And I said, well, we've been putting this play on in California. We could be putting it on here. And these women just jumped at the chance, and we formed a cast, and the rest is history.
And we don't just need women who act and sing. We need crew in the background, helpers, people who know can read the script and help whoever is going to go on stage again. We need a whole gambit.
As with everything, there's a lot more to acting than just the acting. Stage hands, the lighting, the sound, the set.
Absolutely.
That all goes hand in hand with having a successful production. So, point well made.
Yes.
So if anybody's interested in getting involved with the We Did It For You production, it's a great musical. It'll be at the theater every other month for the foreseeable future. We are very excited having you there. You can reach out to them at wediditforyou.org or orpheum.org.
And they don't even have to sing. We have singers. A lot of our actors are in choruses or have taken professional singing lessons, and so one of our actors, Carolyn Waters, who's our musical director, is she's nationally known jazz blues
and she's a
singer.
singing coach, and so she offers her services to help.
So we have I didn't know that. That's very impressive. So we have some real talent on the stage.
Oh,
and so it'd be a great way to get into that network. And
then some of the women have never been in a performance or don't sing or anything. So we have a range of people on the stage. The key is that they become role models. They are role models for other women and girls, and they are playing role models. All the characters, are historic role models, and so it feeds on itself. We have role models playing role models to show that what women can do.
And I think that leads to our target audience is who is it that would really benefit from seeing this?
I'd say families with children 12 years of age and up.
But I also think it would be great for a Girl Scout troop, for scouting in general.
We've had buses come with a whole troop.
Sure.
It's very exciting.
We're hoping to line that up, and we want to talk to you about that.
Oh, well, we can talk now, we can talk later, but we're going to talk here with you. If you have if you're a leader of a girls' organization, I think this is targeted specific. Not to exclude boys, that's not what we're talking about.
I think it's very essential for boys to come too.
Right, I was going to say, because the educational component, and never mind the pure enjoyment, I mean, it is a fun musical and it flows nicely, and life performing arts is something that should never be discounted as an important part of life. Sports, the arts, religion, all these things go into making the whole person. But the target is the girls who...
It's the girls.
The girls who...
And women.
Need to be... need is probably a harsh word, but should be given the opportunity to be educated about the history of women in America and, what are the next steps? Because clearly, by the performance I saw, you had current characters in there also. Absolutely. And there's a continuing need for education and advocacy and activism.
Yes, I mean, one aspect of that is, we think, and the younger generation thinks that these rights that we have just grow on trees. Those of us that remember the 60s remember that lots of these rights we didn't have, and it was a very large fight to get them, and they're easily lost. And that's why we want to encourage people to participate in democracy and be there. Paul Williams, the Grammy Award-winning composer. He wrote Evergreen with Barbra Streisand.
Yes.
He saw the play. He came running up to me afterwards, and he just loved it. And he said, everybody has to see this, especially the men in the families have to see it as well as the women and the girls. So I agree totally that men should see it. And we've had many, many men see it, and they say, they learn so much and they appreciate more what their wives and daughters have to go through. And
very moved by it. They have been very moved by it. One of the things I do want to say is 2 of our cast members are from Foxborough.
Oh, can we give them a shout out?
Sure, I've already given the names, but Marcia Getter,
yes,
and Madeline Champagne.
Yes.
And so they're very, very active in the play.
And it's wonderful having them be part of it because it is the hometown. And also,
absolutely,
you came out and performed at our senior center as well.
Yes, we did.
Big shout out to everybody who came out, gave up their time to come out to the senior center.
We did an excerpt and we did some songs, and it was fun.
And I gave a little talk. I love giving this talk about how I wrote the play, and how it came together. And I enjoy giving that talk.
Well, if you want to hear that talk and you want to see the play, then you'll want to check them out at wediditforyou.org. That's where their schedule is. You can also check it out at orpheum.org. The schedule is posted under the upcoming events. If you want to get a hold of Thea or Shirley and learn more, you can either stop by the theater on Wednesday evenings and you'll have a great chance to meet them, or you can reach out to box office at orpheum.org and they will get your message of interest to them. So let's talk about the performance and performing. Always fascinated. I'm not a performer by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, in some ways you are.
No, I'm not. I clean bathrooms and I schedule things. But how does it feel being up on stage and giving this performance?
I didn't start out feeling very confident, and that was back in 2010. But now, being the producer as well as being, I play Mary Wollstonecraft, who was a woman who wrote a book called The Vindication of the Rights of Woman. She was one of the first feminists in the country who actually documented the differences and how it wasn't fair. And she wrote that in 1792, which is a long, long time ago. So it is a blast. It is a blast, and the camaraderie between the cast members all working together in the crew, it's phenomenal. And it actually helps build us in ways that we personally benefit, not just on the stage. And I think the audiences, as we've gotten so many hundreds of testimonials, they feel it. And they actually, we're saying the words of these women that have said their words that have been documented hundreds years ago, and we're reenacting, and it's very, very empowering.
And it's a powerful production also, because you could, again, if you weren't there, the audience was wrapped in attentiveness as well as enthusiasm, so it was very well received.
And the whole story is set up around the premise of a high schooler needs to learn about what women have done for history, and she has no interest. And she goes from having no interest to being very interested, and so it's so fun to see that the growth of that through the play.
Yeah, there's lots of jokes. I mean, it's a very funny play as well as educational play, and a lot of the jokes come from the young high school student who thinks, that
she knows it all.
Google has the answers to everything, and she has a new iPhone. Therefore, she has seen technology changes. When my mother, who was 102 years old when she died, we got her to list all of the technologies changes that she went through, and it started with gas lights in Manhattan. She remembers when they changed to
And
lights.
horse and buggy to cars.
And she remembers all the hundreds of thousands of horses that used to be in Manhattan before there were cars in there. She remembers the first cars
Really?
coming into Manhattan. So here's this little high school girl thinking, her new iPhone is a change in technology. Well,
What an interesting way to assign the history role to the character within the play, so that way the education becomes the entertainment, and that's pretty brilliant. And now you've written before. This isn't your only work.
no, I've written 12 plays. I've written a novel. I've written a poetry book. So I've done a lot of writing.
So we can find you elsewhere other than here, but this is our current project, and one that seems you've been passionate about for many these past decades. You started this in California when?
Well, in 2010. It's not
Okay.
decades.
Not yet.
And doggy
we're
and kitty
leaning
years.
up
I was going to
to-
say, we're getting there.
We're leading up to, the year 2020, which is the centennial of women getting the right to vote in the country. And so
That'll
that's
be
a
a big
deal.
celebration in the 19th
We
century.
performed at the California centennial in 2011 up in Sacramento, and we, really well received up there. And
Okay.
we performed at a lot of high schools and colleges and all over California. So we're hoping to do that same thing here also.
Okay, that would be great. In fact, you have a banner that you display at many of the events and at the shows, and we'll take a look at it now. And as we look at this, and it seems to give a sense of the woman's journey through history is how you title it. But as we look at it, there are pictures of the actors in various.
Yes, at the top there's two actors, Susan B. Anthony and Eleanor Roosevelt, and you can actually see at the top also, the actual characters themselves, and then there's Pauli Murray, and she was one of the founders of NOW, and in fact I just saw on the basis of sex about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Pauli Murray was one of the characters in that movie. I was like looking at the screen,
Really?
saying, "Oh, there's Pauli Murray!" I was so excited. So yeah, she was an Episcopal priest and a lawyer, and she was incredible. And then at the bottom of it is Alice Paul, who was instrumental in getting the passage of the 19th Amendment.
And there's so many other women in history that we should all know, Margaret Sanger, and so many. You even touch on characters such as Billie Jean King and the important role she
Absolutely.
played in the 70s as far as exposure to the inequalities of professional sports.
Frances Perkins, who started Workman's Comp, and I mean, there's so many.
Well, I
that
was
have
thinking of Billie
contributed.
Jean King because even today the women's professional the soccer team recently struck over equal pay. And,
Oh, yes.
And there
Oh.
was the statement from the editor that we didn't even know this was an issue. Well, how can you not?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the
Billie
fight
Jean,
the
she-
fight continues, does it not?
She
Yes,
fought
it
really
does.
hard for women's equality in tennis. I mean, I heard her talk once, and she was saying how much she really pushed the women to really fight for it. And I saw the documentary, and
And still, it's not
No,
there.
it's not.
As Martina Navratilova has come out and said quite eloquently. So we are so close to being out of time. I could talk about this all day long because
I
it's
know.
such a deep issue,
Yep.
and so many ways that we can talk about it. But the key thing now for everybody to know, you're going to get the last word. While you're thinking of what you're going to tell us, I'm going to tell you should come out and see We Did It For You. It is a wonderful play, a musical of history and of empowerment. Thea Eberall is a playwright. She is in attendance and will be happy to talk to you at the play. She's an amazing person, as is Shirley Rigger, the producer and an actor with them. You can look them up at wediditforyou.org, find out more about the movement, about the play and a musical, and about how you can perhaps be part of it if you are an actor or a budding actress. wediditforyou.org can also be accessed through the website of the theater at www.orpheum.org. That is the Maryland Rodman Performing Arts Center, which is where they'll be performing every every other month for hopefully a long, long, long time. Folks, thank you so much for being here and sharing. Give us the last word. What do you think?
Well, the last thing we say in the play, as the women are all singing, we end with "We did it for you," because that's what it's all about. The women just struck out of their lives in order to help, and it goes through time. So we're still doing it.
Outstanding.
It's a musical. It's a movement. It's more than just a musical, because we want to change people's hearts and minds and make sure that women are equal in this country, and also that we are addressing the moral issues of today, which is, what women have always done.
What a powerful message. Thea Burrell, Shirley Riga.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Bob.
you so much for being here, and thank you, folks. I'm going to take a play on the words, and we do this for you. We're
All right.
Managed by our volunteers. They support us all the way down the road. Deb Storrs and Betty Travers, my longtime camera operators here. Thanks to you, as well as to Paul Beck behind the glass, who makes this all magic come together. Want to also say that we are here on Foxborough Central on our webpage at www.fcatv.org. If you missed any part of this program, you can check that out. You can also go to our YouTube channel and be a subscriber to Foxborough Cable Access. There's so much wonderful programming out there, sports, music, and our show, Foxborough Central. Until next time, folks, have a great day, Foxborough.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous night. The roof will tumble in as we go marching on. Sing the song that children know.
Evening of November 15th, 1917, 33 of us were arrested, beaten, and choked into submission. Alice Cusseau suffered a heart attack as a result of the brutality.
As long as women and girls are valued less, fed last, overworked, underpaid, not schooled, subjected to violence in and out of their homes, the potential for the human family to create a peaceful and prosperous world will not be realized.
I turned the corner and saw thousands of women taken to the streets of New York. Yes.